The vault floated in the darkness of space like a sleeping giant. It was old, older than any living species in the galaxy could remember. The Galactic Council had guarded these precursor stations for 10,000 years, and in all that time, no one had ever made them work. Every powerful species had tried. The Krell, with their insect bodies and hive minds, had spent centuries running calculations. The Volari, who could read thoughts and bend minds, had pushed their psychic powers to the breaking point. The Orathon, a race of living machines, had connected their quantum processors directly to the ancient systems. All of them failed. The vault simply refused to wake up. Captain Ginho Park stood on the bridge of his small research ship, the Horizon's Edge, and looked at Vault 7 through the main window. It was massive. The station stretched 4 kilometers in every direction, its surface covered in patterns that no one could read. Lights that had been dark for millennia dotted its hull like dead eyes. Ginho was not an important man by galactic standards. Humans were new to space. They had only earned their seat on the Council 50 years ago, and most alien species still called them a juvenile race. When Ginho requested permission to study Vault 7, the Council had laughed and given approval immediately. The vault had been declared exhausted after thousands of failed attempts. Let the young humans waste their time, they said. His crew was small. Dr. Yuna Kong sat at the science station, her eyes bright with excitement. She was a xenorchaeologist, a person who studied ancient alien cultures, and she had dreamed of seeing a precursor vault since childhood. Lieutenant Taiho Shin stood at the engineering console, his arms crossed and his face showing doubt. He thought this mission was a waste of time. Ensign Hannah Cho sat at the pilot's seat, young and nervous on her first deep space mission. "We are in position, Captain," Hannah said. Jinho nodded. "Dr. Kang, what can you tell us?" Yuna pulled up her readings. "The structure is intact. Power systems are dormant, but not dead. There is still energy inside, just waiting." She paused. "Captain, I want to go inside." Taiho made a sound of disagreement. "Every species in the galaxy has tried touching those systems. They all failed. What makes you think we will be different?" "I do not think we will be different," Yuna admitted, "but we have to try. That is why we are here." Ginho considered for a moment. He was a careful man, but he was also curious. The precursors had disappeared millions of years ago, leaving only their technology behind. Understanding them could change everything humanity knew about the universe. "Prepare a shuttle," he said. "Small team. Yuna Taiho, you are with me. Hannah, keep the ship ready." The shuttle ride to Vault 7 was quiet. Taiho checked his equipment again and again. Yuna pressed her face to the window, trying to see every detail of the ancient station. Ginho simply waited, his mind calm. They entered through an airlock that opened automatically when they approached. The inside of the vault was dark, but emergency lights flickered on as they walked, as if the station was slowly waking from a long sleep. Still working after all this time, the corridors were wide and tall, built for beings much larger than humans. Strange symbols covered the walls, flowing like water frozen in metal. Yuna recorded everything with her equipment, her hands shaking slightly. They walked for an hour before they found the central chamber. It was enormous. A great dome stretched above them, and in the center stood a console unlike anything they had seen. It was made of a material that seemed to shift between solid and liquid, and it glowed with a faint inner light. "This is it," Yuna whispered. "The main interface? Every species has tried to activate this." Taiho looked at his scanner. "The readings are strange. There is power here, a lot of it, but it is like it is asleep." Waiting for something, Yuna walked toward the console slowly. Her heart was beating fast. She had studied the precursors her entire adult life, and now she was standing in front of their greatest mystery. She reached out her hand. "Yuna, wait," Jinho said. "We should scan it first." "Every species has scanned it," Yuna replied. "Every species has been careful. Maybe careful is not what it needs." Before anyone could stop her, she pressed her bare palm against the console. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the universe changed. Light exploded from the console. It rushed outward like a wave, filling the chamber, flowing down the corridors, spreading through the entire station. Systems that had been silent for millions of years roared to life. The dome above them lit up with stars, showing a map of the galaxy so detailed it took their breath away. Taiho fell backward in shock. Jinho grabbed the wall to steady himself. Yuna stood frozen, her hands still on the console, her eyes wide. A voice spoke. It was not sound exactly, more like meaning pressed directly into their minds. The language was unknown, but somehow they understood every word. Successor detected. Genetic resonance confirmed. Welcome, child of Earth. The inheritance awaits. Then the console went dark, and Yuna collapsed. Jinho caught her before she hit the ground. Her pulse was strong, but she was unconscious. Around them, the vault continued to hum with new life. What just happened? Taiho asked, his voice shaking. Jinho looked around at the awakened station, at the lights and symbols now glowing on every surface. He thought about all the powerful species that had tried and failed, the Krell with their billions of minds, the Volari with their mental powers, the Orathon with their perfect logic. All of them rejected, and then one human woman touched the console, and everything changed. I do not know, Jinho said quietly, but I think the galaxy is about to find out. They carried Yuna back to the shuttle. Behind them, Vault 7 blazed with light for the first time in 10,000 years. Sensors across the galaxy detected the energy spike. Ships changed course. Messages flew between homeworlds. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. The humans had done something impossible. They had woken the sleeping gods. And no one knew yet if that was a miracle or a disaster. On the horizon's edge, Anna watched the vault light up and felt a chill run down her spine. She was young, but she understood enough to know that everything was different now. Humanity had been a small voice in a galaxy of giants. Now they had found something that could make the giants afraid. She did not know. If she should feel proud or terrified, perhaps. She thought both were correct. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Every species with access to communication networks heard the same impossible story. Vault 7 had awakened. After 10,000 years of silence, after countless failed attempts by the greatest civilizations, a small human research team had done what no one else could do. The Galactic Council chamber was full of noise and anger. Representatives from dozens of species shouted over each other, their translators struggling to keep up. The Krell delegate, a massive insectoid creature with compound eyes that reflected the chamber lights, demanded answers. The Volari ambassador, tall and thin, with skin that shifted colors based on emotion, radiated distrust so strong that nearby telepaths had to shield their minds. In the middle of this storm stood Ambassador Minji Beak. She was a small woman compared to most aliens in the room. But she stood straight, and her voice did not shake. She had been sent from Earth to manage this situation, and she knew it was the most important moment in human history. The Council will have order, announced the chief mediator, an ancient Orathan whose metal body had been upgraded hundreds of times over millennia of service. The noise slowly died down. Ambassador Beak, the mediator, continued. Humanity must explain how this activation occurred. The precursor vaults have rejected every species for 10,000 years. How did your people succeed? Minji took a breath. We do not fully understand it ourselves. Dr. Unikong touched the central interface and it responded. That is what we know. The Krell delegate made a harsh clicking sound. Impossible. We calculated every possible interaction. There was nothing special about physical contact. Perhaps your calculations missed something, Minji replied calmly. The chamber erupted again. The suggestion that the Krell, known for their perfect hive-mind mathematics, could have missed anything was deeply insulting to them. Meanwhile, on the horizon's edge, Dr. Unikong had woken up. She sat in the medical bay, connected to monitoring equipment, while Ginho and Taiho waited for answers. I felt something, Yuna said slowly. When I touched the console, it was like the vault was looking inside me. Not my mind, but deeper. My body, my blood, my cells. Taiho frowned. That does not make scientific sense. Nothing about the precursors makes sense by our science, Una replied. She called up a display of her medical scans. Look at this. The ship's medical AI found something strange in my DNA. The display showed a complex genetic sequence highlighted in red. What is that? Jinho asked. I do not know. But the AI compared it to genetic databases from other species. The Krell do not have it. The Valari do not have it. The Orthan are machines, so they have no DNA at all. But every human tested has this same sequence. Taiho leaned forward. You were saying there is something in human DNA that activated the vault? Una nodded slowly. I think so. I am calling it the resonance gene for now. It produces a biological frequency that matches the precursor activation protocols. When I touched the console, my body was sending a signal that the vault recognized. The room was silent. The precursors have been gone for millions of years, Jinho said. Humans did not even exist when they disappeared. How could they have put something in our DNA? Una shook her head. I do not know. But the evidence is clear. Human biology is the key to precursor technology. This information reached the Galactic Council within hours. It did not calm them down. If anything, it made things worse. The Krell demanded that humanity surrender all access to the vaults immediately. They argued that such power should belong to the oldest and most advanced species. The Valari accused humans of stealing the gene somehow, even though that made no logical sense. The Orthon proposed capturing human subjects for study. To replicate the gene artificially, Minji listened to all of this with a cold face. Speak of us as if we are tools to be used, she said when they finished. We are a people. We did not ask for this inheritance, but we will not be dissected for your convenience. The Valari ambassador's skin flushed dark purple with anger. You are children playing with weapons you do not understand? The precursor technology could reshape reality. Do you know what happens when children play with such things? I know what happens when adults try to take what belongs to others, Mingi replied. History has many examples. None of them end well. The tension in the chamber was thick enough to cut. Back on the horizon's edge, Taiho had begun decoding the first data streams from Vault 7. The precursor language was complex, but patterns were emerging. What he found made his blood run cold. Captain, you need to see this. Jinho came to the engineering station. On the screen were symbols and images that told a story. A very bad story. The precursors left warnings, Taiho explained. They are talking about something called the Hollow, an enemy, something they fought and could not kill. Una joined them, still weak but curious. What do the warnings say? Taiho translated slowly. The Hollow consumes. The Hollow learns. The Hollow becomes. We could not destroy it, so we sealed it away. The prison requires the key to stay locked. The key must never be used carelessly. They all understood what that meant. The key is us, Jinho said. Human DNA. The same thing that opens the vaults also keeps something locked away. And we just used it, Una whispered. Nobody spoke for a long time in the Galactic Council chamber. The arguing continued. Species that had dominated the galaxy for thousands of years could not accept that young humanity held the secrets they had always wanted. Political alliances formed and broke within hours. Trade agreements were threatened. Military postures changed. Mingi watched it all and thought about the warnings Jinho had sent her. The galaxy was fighting over the vaults like children fighting over toys. And none of them knew what they were really dealing with. The Hollow, an ancient enemy. A thing so terrible that the precursors had sacrificed everything to lock it away. And humanity, without knowing what they were doing, might have just weakened its cage. She did not share this information with the council. Not yet. They were not ready to hear it. They were too busy being afraid of humans to be afraid of what was really coming, but Minji knew the truth would come out. Eventually, it always did. And when the galaxy learned what humanity had accidentally set in motion, the arguments about politics and power would seem very small indeed. She looked up at the ceiling of the chamber, as if she could see through it to the stars beyond. Something was out there, something old and hungry, and it was starting to wake up. The first sign of trouble came from a small colony on the edge of explored space. It was a mining station, home to 3,000 workers from different species. One day, all communication stopped. When a patrol ship arrived to investigate, they found nothing. The buildings were intact. The equipment was still running. But every living creature was gone, as if they had simply vanished. Then it happened again. And again, stars began to dim in certain regions of space. Ships passing through empty sectors disappeared without sending distress signals. Astronomers reported strange readings. Patches of space where light seemed to bend wrong, where sensors showed nothing at all, not even vacuum. And then came the whispers. Across the galaxy, beings of every species reported hearing voices in their minds. Not clear words, but impressions. Hunger, patience, inevitability. Telepaths were hit hardest. Several Volari mind readers went mad and had to be restrained. The whispers drove them to claw at their own eyes, screaming about the darkness that was coming. The Galactic Council finally stopped arguing about humans. They had something worse to worry about. Captain Jinho Park, now promoted to commander, led an expedition to Vault 1. It was the largest precursor station ever found, believed to contain the master control systems for all other vaults. If there were answers anywhere, they would be there. His crew had grown. Dr. Unikong was still with him, determined to understand what her ancestors had inherited. Taiho remained as chief engineer, his doubt replaced by grim determination. Hannah had become a skilled pilot, no longer the nervous ensign she had been. New members had joined them. Dr. Doyan Ru was a xenobiologist who specialized in studying hive organisms. He had theories about how the hollow might function, and none of them were comforting. Sergeant Yunbi Huang was a Marine who had survived one of the colony disappearances. She had seen the hollows work up close, and the experience had changed her. "Tell me what happened," Jinho asked her. During the journey to Vault-1.EUN, Bai stared at the wall, her eyes distant. "I was on Frontier Station 7, security shift. Normal night. Then the lights flickered, and I heard something. Not with my ears. Inside my head, like a million voices all speaking at once, but saying nothing I could understand. I ran. I do not know why. Something in me said to run, and I listened. I made it to an escape pod just as the darkness reached my section." "Darkness?" Yuna asked. "That is the only word for it. It was not shadow. It was absence. Like reality itself was being eaten. I saw other people get caught in it. They did not die. They were absorbed. I could feel them screaming inside it, becoming part of something bigger. The room was very quiet. The hollow does not just kill," Yunbi continued. "It learns. It takes everything you are, your memories, your knowledge, your genetic code, and it adds you to itself. Every civilization it has ever consumed is still in there somewhere, still aware, still suffering." Odoya nodded slowly. "A perfect predator. It grows stronger with every victim, and it can use what it learns. If it absorbed a species that knew how to build starships, it can build starships. If it absorbed telepaths, it can use telepathy. 10,000 years ago, it absorbed the precursors," Yuna said quietly. "That is how it knows about the vaults. That is how it knows about us." They reached Vault 1 after 3 weeks of travel. The station was enormous, larger than some moons. Its surface covered in the same flowing symbols as Vault 7. When their ship approached, the station lit up immediately, recognizing the human crew. Inside, they found wonders and horrors. The precursors had left records. Not just data, but experiences, stored in crystal matrices that played directly into human minds. Yuna was the first to access them, and what she saw made her weep. She saw the precursor civilization at its height. They had been beautiful. These ancient beings, with bodies of light and minds that could touch the fabric of space itself. They had built wonders across the galaxy, seeded life on countless worlds, guided young species toward enlightenment. Then the hollow came. It arrived from outside the galaxy, from the void between stars, hungry in a way that nothing else had ever been hungry. The precursors fought back with everything they had. They built weapons that could crack planets. They created shields that could hold back supernovas. None of it worked. The Hollow adapted to everything they tried, absorbing their technology as easily as it absorbed their people. In the end, the precursors made a terrible choice. They could not destroy the Hollow, but they could contain it. They built a dimensional prison, a pocket of folded space that existed outside normal reality. Pushing the Hollow inside required enormous power. The only source strong enough was the precursors themselves. Billions of them sacrificed themselves, burning their life force to seal the cage. The survivors, too few to maintain their civilization, chose to fade away rather than risk becoming what they fought. But before they died, they left a legacy. They found a small blue planet with primitive life forms showing promise. They seeded those creatures with the resonance gene, encoding their genetic signature into what would eventually become humanity. They left the vaults as tools and the knowledge as warnings. Someday, their successors would need to finish what they started. Una came out of the crystal memory with tears on her face. They knew, she said. Millions of years ago, they knew we would be here. They designed us for this. Designed us for what? Jinho asked. The prison is weakening. That is why the Hollow is stirring. The seal requires periodic reinforcement using the resonance gene. The precursors could not do it anymore because they were gone. So they created us. We are the key not just to open the vaults, but to keep the Hollow locked away. Taiho was running calculations. But we activated Vault 7 without knowing the proper protocols. We sent a signal without understanding what we were signaling. Yes, Una said. We told the Hollow that the new key holders had arrived, and we told it exactly where to find us. Alarms began to sound throughout the station. Sensors had detected something approaching Vault 1. Something massive. Something that was not showing up on normal scanners. Because it existed partially outside normal space. The Hollow had found them. Ginho did not hesitate. Everyone back to the ship. Now? They ran through corridors that had been peaceful moments before. Behind them, the walls began to change. The flowing precursor symbols turned dark, corrupted by something pressing against reality from the other side. They made it to the ship with seconds to spare. Hannah flew them away at maximum speed, while darkness bloomed behind them. Reaching out with tendrils of nothing that erased everything they touched, Vault-1 went dark behind them. The largest precursor station in the galaxy had fallen, but they had what they came for. They had knowledge. They had the precursor weapons codes, and they had a mission. The galaxy was in danger, and only humans could save it. Whether anyone would believe them was another question entirely. The Valari homeworld burned. The attack came without warning. A crack in space opened above their capital city, and the Hollow poured through. It was not an army in any traditional sense. It was absence given form, a tide of darkness that consumed everything it touched. The Valari were telepaths, among the most mentally powerful species in the galaxy. They tried to fight back with their minds. They pushed against the Hollow with the combined psychic strength of millions. It did not matter. The Hollow had absorbed telepaths before. It knew their tricks. It turned their own power against them, using their mental connections to spread faster. To find more victims, the psychic screams of the dying echoed across the galaxy. Every telepathic species felt it. The Valari were not just dying. They were being absorbed, their minds dragged into the Hollow's collective consciousness, aware and suffering for eternity. Billions perished in the first hour. By the time the Galactic Council could respond, half the Valari population was gone. The survivors fled in whatever ships they could find. Their beautiful homeworld, a place of crystal towers and floating gardens, became a dead sphere stripped of all life. Its surface crawling with patterns of darkness that spread like disease. The council met in emergency session. The chamber was no longer full of confident voices arguing about politics. Now it was filled with fear. Ambassador Minji Beak stood before them, and this time everyone listened. You saw what happened to the Valari, she said. You felt it. The Hollow is real. It is here, and it will come for all of you next. No one argued. The precursors could not destroy it, Minji continued, But they contained it once. We can contain it again. The vaults hold weapons designed for this exact purpose. But those weapons will only work for humans. The Krell delegate, who had demanded humanity surrender the vaults just weeks before, spoke carefully. What do you need from us? Everything. Ships, resources, time. The Hollow is adapting. Learning our defenses, growing stronger with every world it consumes. We need to strike before it becomes unstoppable. Commander Jinho Park, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, presented the battle plan. The precursor data had given them the location of a weapons platform hidden in deep space, far from any star. It was powerful enough to hurt the Hollow, possibly powerful enough to push it back into its prison. But reaching it would require fighting through Hollow-infested space. This is not a battle we can win alone, Jinho said. We need a coalition fleet. Every species must contribute. The Krell committed their hive fleets, thousands of ships crewed by linked minds working in perfect coordination. The Orothan offered their manufacturing power, building new vessels at a rate no organic species could match. The surviving Valar, burning with rage and grief, volunteered their telepaths for communication and coordination. Even species that had never cooperated, before set aside their differences. The Drathi, a reptilian race known for their fierce independence, joined the coalition. The Min, a species of living crystals that communicated through light, offered their ships as shields. A dozen other races contributed what they could. For the first time in galactic history, every species was united against a common enemy. Commander Sun Wu, you arrived from Earth to serve as tactical coordinator. She was a military genius, famous for winning battles that should have been impossible. Looking at the coalition fleet, she saw potential, but also chaos. Different species fight differently, she told Ginho. The Krell used swarm tactics. The Drahai preferred direct assault. The Min are defensive specialists. Getting them to work together will be like conducting an orchestra where every musician plays a different instrument. Can you do it? Jinho asked. Sun Hu smiled grimly. Ask me after the battle. The plan was simple in concept, difficult in execution. They would lure the Hollow's main mass toward the weapons platform, then activate the precursor systems at full power. The energy burst would weaken the Hollow enough to push it back into its dimensional prison, sealing it away again. But there was a problem. Dr. Unikong had discovered something terrible in the precursor records. The weapons platform required a direct neural link to operate. A human mind had to connect with the system, guiding its aim and directing its power. The energy feedback from firing would be lethal. We cannot automate it. Taiho asked desperately. Yuna shook her head. The precursors tried. The Hollow adapts too quickly. It requires real-time human decision-making, human intuition, human will. The weapon is not just a machine. It is a partnership between technology and consciousness. How many operators do we need? Ginho asked quietly. 12 human minds connected to 12 control nodes. The power distribution requires it. She paused. None of them will survive the firing sequence. The news spread through the human contingent. 12 people needed to die to save the galaxy. 12 volunteers who would never come home. Jinho expected to spend days finding them. He was wrong. Within hours, over 200 humans had volunteered. Soldiers and scientists, pilots and engineers, young and old. They understood what was at stake. They were willing to pay the price. The selection was the hardest thing Jinho had ever done. He chose 12 people, each one essential, each one irreplaceable. And he had to look them in the eyes and thank them for their sacrifice, Hannah. Cho was among them. Jinho found her in the observation deck, looking out at the gathered fleet. Ships from every corner of the galaxy, more firepower than had ever been assembled in one place. You do not have to do this, he said. Hannah shook her head. Yes, I do. I was there at the beginning at Vault 7. I watched Yuna touch that console and change everything. I have been part of this story from the start. I want to be part of how it ends. You could be part of what comes after. She turned to look at him. Her eyes were calm. Someone has to fire the weapon, Admiral. Someone has to sit in that chair and pull the trigger and die so everyone else can live. I have thought about it a lot. I am not afraid anymore. Jinho did not know what to say. She was so young. She should have had decades ahead of her. Instead, she was choosing to burn out like a star, bright and brief and beautiful. "Thank you," he said finally. It was not enough, but it was all he had. Hannah smiled. "Thank me after we win." The fleet moved into position. Thousands of ships from dozens of species, all following a plan designed by humans. All protecting 12 people who were about to sacrifice everything. The Hollow sensed them coming. It turned from the ruins of the Valari homeworld and began to move, a mass of darkness larger than moons. Hungry and ancient and terrible. The final battle was about to begin, and in the heart of the Coalition fleet, 12 humans prepared to become legends. The Battle of the Void was the largest engagement in galactic history. Thousands of ships formed a wall of metal and fire between the Hollow and the weapons platform. On one side stood the united species of the galaxy. On the other side stood the end of everything. The Hollow emerged from twisted space like a wound in reality. It was vast beyond comprehension, a darkness that swallowed light and bent the fabric of existence around it. Within its depths, the stolen minds of 1 trillion victims still screamed, their consciousness trapped forever in an endless nightmare. Admiral Ginho Park stood on the bridge of the command ship, watching the enemy approach. Commander Sun Wu, you worked beside him, coordinating the movements of ships that had never fought together before. Krell Swarm, engage at 40,000 kilometers, Sun Wu ordered. Drathi Strike Force, hold position. Min Crystalline Shields, form Barrier Line 7. The Krell moved first. Their hive ships attacked as one, thousands of vessels swarming toward the Hollow, like insects around a flame. They knew they could not hurt it, but they could distract it, slow it down. By time for the weapon to charge, the Hollow responded with terrifying efficiency. Tendrils of darkness reached out, touching ships and erasing them from existence. The Krell did not retreat. They flew into the void knowing they would die, their hive minds accepting the sacrifice for the greater good. Hundreds of ships vanished in the first minute, then thousands on the weapons platform, deep inside the protected core. 12 humans sat in chairs connected to the precursor systems. Cables ran from their temples to the ancient technology around them. Their eyes glowed faint blue as the neural link established itself. Dr. Unicong guided the targeting systems, her mind expanded by the precursor interface. She could sense the Hollow now, feel its shape, its movements, its hunger. It was old, older than stars. It hated everything that lived. Lieutenant Taiho Shin managed the power flow, its engineering expertise keeping the systems from overloading too soon. They needed to hold the charge until the perfect moment. Insen Hannah Cho sat at the central node, the most dangerous position. She would be the one to give the final command. To push the button that would end the Hollow and end herself. She was not afraid. Back in the battle, the Drathi launched their assault. Their heavy cruisers dove straight toward the Hollow's core, weapons blazing. They were the most aggressive species in the galaxy, and they fought like it. Their ships punched through the outer layers of darkness, dealing damage that actually seemed to hurt the ancient entity. The Hollow screamed, not with sound, but with psychic force that knocked telepaths unconscious across the fleet. It was feeling pain, perhaps for the first time in millions of years, but it was also adapting. It learned from the Drathi attack, shifted its form, created defenses. The next wave of ships found their weapons useless, their tactics predicted and countered. "It is learning too fast," Sun Wu said grimly. "We need more time." "Then we give it more time," Jinho replied. He opened a channel to all ships. "This is Fleet Admiral Park. All vessels, maximum engagement. Everything we have." The entire Coalition fleet surged forward. It was no longer a coordinated assault. It was a sacrifice. 10,000 ships throwing themselves at the darkness to buy minutes, seconds. Whatever they could give, the Valari survivors screamed their rage through telepathic networks, guiding missiles with their minds. The min crystals formed barriers that shattered against the void, buying moments before dissolving. The Orothan machines calculated and recalculated, finding tiny weaknesses to exploit, and humans died alongside them all. On the platform, the weapon reached full charge. Una felt the power flowing through the systems, more energy than any species had ever controlled. It was beautiful and terrible. "We are ready," she announced. "Targeting confirmed," said Doyen, who had volunteered to operate one of the secondary nodes. "Power stable," Taiho reported, though sweat ran down his face from the effort of maintaining it. Hannah closed her eyes. She thought about her family on Earth, her parents who had been so proud when she joined the fleet, her younger brother who wanted to follow in her footsteps. They would never see her again, but they would know what she had done. "Begin firing sequence," Jinho's voice came through the link. Hannah opened her eyes. The neural interface showed her everything at once, the battle raging outside. The Coalition fleet being destroyed piece by piece, the hollow growing closer every second. She saw 10,000 years of history, the precursors burning themselves to contain this evil. The long wait for humanity to arrive. She saw the future too, or what could be the future. A galaxy free from fear. Species working together. Children playing on worlds that would have been consumed. All of it depending on what happened in the next few seconds. Firing, she said, the weapon activated. It was not light or heat or radiation. It was something more fundamental, a frequency that resonated with reality itself. The precursors had built it to undo the Hollow's existence. To unravel the dimensional bonds that held the entity together, the beam struck the Hollow's center, and the ancient evil screamed across every frequency. Its form began to dissolve. The darkness that had consumed civilizations started coming apart, unable to maintain cohesion against the weapon's impossible power. The absorbed minds within it were finally released, their consciousnesses dissipating into peace after eternities of torment. Inside the platform, the 12 volunteers burned. The neural feedback was exactly as terrible as predicted. Una felt her thoughts scattering. Taiho's systems crashed, one by one, as his body failed. Doyan went silent mid-sentence. 8 of the 12 died in the first second. Hannah held on. She did not know how. Perhaps it was stubbornness, or love, or simple human refusal to give up. She kept the beam focused, kept pushing the hollow back toward its dimensional prison. 3 more volunteers fell. Their bodies could not take the strain. Their minds flickered out like candles in a storm. Only Hannah and Nari's song remained. Nari was a quiet engineer who had barely spoken throughout the campaign. Now, she screamed through the neural link, pouring every last bit of her will into the weapon. The hollow collapsed into itself. The dimensional prison opened, hungry to reclaim its prisoner. The ancient evil was dragged back into the void between realities, sealed away once more. Hannah felt herself fading. Her last thought was of the stars, how beautiful they looked when they were not being devoured. She hoped everyone would remember to look at them sometimes. The weapon went silent. On the command ship, Ginho watched the sensors. The hollow was gone. The dimensional prison was sealed. The galaxy was safe. He should have felt triumph. Instead, he felt only loss. "Get rescue teams to the platform," he ordered. Now, they found 11 bodies and 1 survivor. Nari's song was alive, barely. Her mind was damaged, possibly beyond repair, but she was breathing. The doctor said it was a miracle. Hannah Cho's last transmission had been recorded and saved. It spread across the galaxy within hours, played in every language on every world. We are the children of those who refuse to give up. We carry their hope, and we will never let it die. The funeral for the 12 volunteers was held on Earth. Representatives from every species attended. The Krell, who had lost more ships than any other race, stood in silent respect. The Valari survivors wept openly. The Orathon bowed their metal heads. Admiral Ginho Park spoke the names. Unikong, Taiho Shin, Hana Cho, Doyan Ru, 8 others who had given everything. 12 humans who had saved the galaxy in the years that followed. Everything changed. Humanity was no longer a young species to be ignored. They were the inheritors of the precursor legacy, the keepers of the key. But they did not use this power to dominate. Instead, they shared the vault technology freely, helping all species advance together. The first interspecies academy was built on Earth. Krell larvae studied beside Valari younglings and human children. They learned each other's languages, each other's histories, each other's dreams. Ginho retired from the military to teach at the academy. He told his students about the battle, about the people who had died, about the choice they had made. He wanted the next generation to understand that being the key meant being responsible, not being superior. Yuna's research was continued by others. The precursor knowledge was vast, and it would take centuries to understand it all. But every discovery was shared, every advance made available to everyone, and on the memorial wall of the reconstructed Vault 1, 12 names were carved in the language of the precursors. The first new writing in that ancient tongue in 10 million years, Narration visited the memorial every year. On the anniversary of the battle, she could not remember much of what had happened. The neural damage had taken most of those memories. But she remembered Hannah's voice, that final transmission. Those words that had become the motto of the new galactic age. She touched the wall where Hannah's name was carved. "We did it," she whispered. We opened the door, and everybody walked through. Above her, through the transparent dome of the memorial chamber, the stars shone peacefully. They were safe now, all of them. Because 12 humans had been willing to burn so that others could live, that was the human way. That was always the human way.